name is Liz Tevlin. I am a registered nurse working at Street Health, a community-based organization that works with homeless and underhoused communities in the downtown core of Toronto. The homeless and underhoused communities have been extremely hard hit by this pandemic. The messaging has consistently been, stay at home, but how do you socially distance if you don't have a home? How do you wash your hands if you don't have access to a washroom? How do you get a mask, and how do you keep it clean? But beyond that, how do you even get reliable information about what is going on and what you need to do to stay safe? Most of our clients don't have access to phones or computers, especially since the library is closed, so information is largely found by word of mouth. These communities have extremely high rates of chronic health issues that put them at great risk for complications from COVID. They are the ones who will likely get very sick. They are the ones at risk of dying. And the governments are not providing adequate support. The different levels of government have provided some help, but it has consistently been too little, too late. And now that the city is opening up again, I am very afraid that these communities will be forgotten as everyone else moves on. Before the pandemic hit, we were already experiencing an opioid overdose crisis, as well as a homelessness crisis in Toronto. COVID has worsened both of these crises and brought along many new problems. There's been a major reduction in services that work with homeless and underhoused communities, such as healthcare, harm reduction, food programs, case management, and overdose prevention sites. This has led to increases in physical and mental health issues, isolation, severe malnourishment, overdoses, and extreme levels of stress. It has become even more difficult than usual to access shelter beds. I've called with several clients and been unable to secure beds, so those clients have had to sleep outside instead. Specialty beds are even harder to come by. I met with a longtime client this week who was in extreme distress and disclosed to me that she was indeed suicidal. I was unable to get her a mental health bed because of the reduction in programming. And she didn't feel safe going to a general shelter, which is a common sentiment that has greatly escalated with COVID. Many homeless people feel more safe living in encampments and find a sense of community there. That is their home. Initially, the city put a moratorium on clearing the encampments, which was a great relief to hear. However, they have since begun clearing encampments again, destroying people's personal property, and breaking up communities. They are doing this without having appropriate alternate housing options for these residents. They have nowhere else to go that is safe. They are simply being told to move along. We need your help. We need you to call and to write to your representatives to demand several things. First, immediately provide all homeless people with hotel rooms or housing and reinstate the moratorium on clearing encampments. Second, provide access to washrooms, showers, laundry, telephones, food, and service referrals at day shelters. This also provides temporary shelter from the elements, which is very important. Already this week, I met with a man suffering from heat exposure, and those cases will only increase as the summer comes. Next, increase COVID testing at homeless facilities and connect those facilities with healthcare workers to ensure effective and accurate screening. It's not as simple as whether you do or don't have a cough, do or don't have a fever. Finally, we need better funding for harm reduction services such as overdose prevention sites and safer supply prescribing programs, and we need to make these services available at all hotels and isolation sites. Thank you for your time, and thank you for helping to support some of our most vulnerable community members. We are all in this together. Thank you.
My name is Benjamin Reese, and I'm the supervising lawyer for housing law at Downtown Legal Services. DLS is a legal clinic where we teach and train students from the University of Toronto Faculty of Law. My students and I advise and represent low-income people from across Toronto in disputes with their housing providers. Tenants today average less than half the household income of homeowners and a small fraction of the average net worth. They skew younger, less white, less likely to be born in Canada, more likely to be living with a disability. And when a marginalized group speaks out about injustice, I believe we should listen. From the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, the loudest organized tenant voices have called for a general rent strike, otherwise known as the Keep Your Rent campaign. In my job, I help tenants hold individual landlords accountable for breaches of the law, but COVID-19 has turned tenants' attention to landlords generally and the ever-increasing rents they have charged in recent years. In Ontario, we have a system that lets landlords rent at the highest rate they can obtain on the open market. Many landlords have been able to charge enough rent to cover their mortgages. Tenants have paid 50, 60, and even 80% of their incomes on housing, sometimes just for a bedroom in an even more expensive apartment that they split with people that they met online. Tenants in these situations have been unable to save any money for a down payment, much less savings for, the general shutdown of the economy. We don't do this with homeowners. We tightly regulate mortgages to avoid having people pay too much of their income on a home and to limit the risk of them losing that home due to economic changes. That's because we think of a person's home as something that they must not lose. But with tenants, we have decided that supply and demand can just take care of it. And if anyone gets evicted because they can't pay, then we expect them to just pick up and try again somewhere else. Tenants may have accepted this situation before on the promise of continued economic growth. Don't worry if you can barely afford your rent now. You'll get a better job in a few years and everything will get easier from there. But now, facing job losses and economic uncertainty, many tenants don't know how they will pay rent next month, and they blame their landlords for creating a system that has left so many tenants at such a high risk of homelessness. Think about your home and whether you feel like it is more than just a product that you purchased. Think about what it means to your sense of identity, family, community, and safety, especially now. Consider whether you believe everyone deserves to feel this way about some place. And consider whether a system that tosses some of us from place to place is a system that really treats us all as equal. Consider whether there is such a thing as an immoral rent, and refuse to participate in a system that charges that. Refuse to invest in a system that charges that. Like hand sanitizer and toilet paper, refuse to engage in the practice of hoarding more housing than you need while charging top dollar to people who are less fortunate than you. And join calls for fair rent regulation and a meaningful right to housing for all.
Hi everybody, my name is Angie Hocking and I am the Director of Outreach and Pastoral Associate of Community Engagement in downtown Toronto at the Church of the Redeemer. I'm coming to you today to tell you what we've been doing during the pandemic. It's the 11th week of the pandemic and we continue to remain open. We are open 5 days a week serving meals Monday through Friday. We have access to the washroom and phone and important supplies for people. We are seeing about 120 to 150 people every day. So it is pretty intense. So we are hearing, we're pretty close to our people and we are hearing a lot of concerns. So that some small things like, where am I going to use the washroom tonight? To larger things like, what if I get sick? What if I catch this thing at one of the shelters I'm staying at or in an encampment? What if my tent gets bulldozed because I said no to staying in a shelter where there's an outbreak? So people are living in a very difficult situation. stuck between a rock and a hard place, as they say. So it's been very difficult to see this and very unbelievable. I've been doing this work for 15 years and I have never witnessed the kind of stress on our people that I have during this time. 3 ways I think you can help right now that I want to leave you with. One is housing advocacy. So this is, I think, for sure the most pressing issue right now, is we need you to advocate for housing. The city has the infrastructure to do this. It might sound like, oh, there's no way they can do it. Absolutely they can. And in fact, they made the promise that they would in March, of which they have not followed through with. So we really need your voice in that to help them stick to their promises. For more information on this and other advocacy issues, I'm going to direct you to a new website that me and some folks have started. So it's called faithinaction.to. And this is for anyone of faith that would like to be engaged with advocacy issues related to homelessness and COVID right now in Toronto. So it's specific to this conversation, and I would love to have you visit that website because we're going to be posting regularly what that looks like. Number 2 is support your local organization or church that's helping people on the streets. So, write them a check if you have the means to be able to do so. And also, and this is just my opinion, of course, but I don't believe in just supporting organizations. I think you need to reach out to the individual as well and really support the individual. Whether that means buying somebody a to-go meal that you see on the street, to offering some cash, whatever that looks like for you and for that person. But just make sure that you remember how important it is that we connect personally, right? Like with people and not just through organizations. Number 3, educate your neighbors and your friends. Like, you have an opportunity, like social media. I mean, what else are people doing right now besides scrolling through Facebook? So humanize people as much as you can. Humanize folks that you've met on the street or that you know. Tell stories that you know of, your friend Joe that is in an encampment right now and is not feeling safe. If you have these relationships, tell those stories, because that's what is interesting to us, right? Like we want to know, we want a face to injustice, and we need that face to be able to make change. So, and to really get people interested and involved. So even as you shelter in place, like I said, just use your voice and continue to voice that concern for the poor. Through those actions, that's how people will see Christ right now. So do that. Keep well and safe, and thank you for your time, and hope to see you soon.